week here, and we're doing another show. This is great. Just the can keep up with Biden. He's been shooting those Chinese delivery packages. It is just anything moves. As a Chinese letter on it, he's shooting it down. From Russia was love. Now it's Chinese. I don't know what's going on. It used to be shooting this strange or unidentified object over Canada. Now it says over North America. Now North America is gonna wage a war with China. North America. Let's include Canada in this. I don't know if they want it or not, but now it's North America and China. We used to not before that the West against Russia, and that clown Zelensky just running around, kissing and hugging and sniffing. This guy on cocaine or something is I've never seen somebody sniff that many times. But anyway, sending tanks and NATO, European are gearing up to fight the Russian until the last Ukrainian soldier or person. Now the Ukrainian are the new Mujahideen. But anyway, Russia is going to put on hold now. Now we're fighting with those spy balloons and things are sent from China. And I took a very close look on that things, and I found it was just a delivery of Chinese takeout by dash door, whatever, something like that. But we shut it down anyway. We like Chinese food, but we don't like the Chinese. Anyway, we have our guest today. She's into, she's been fighting for peace for so many years. An insider, she was an FBI agent, a retired FBI agent, and wrote the whistleblower memo. Hey, Coleen.
Hi there.
Is on time.
Nice to see you again.
My goodness. Are you always on time, or is this just an FBI thing?
I tend not to be too early, and sometimes I'm a little late, but I try to be right on time.
That's not Coleen, you've been an insider. You've been working with the FBI, so you've been behind in the kitchen, cooking things and plotting things all over the places. But you couldn't, you didn't like that kind of work. And actually, you are known for the one who wrote the whistleblower memo about the FBI failure, and that didn't take. It got a lot of media attention, but the FBI ignored that, and so everybody, knows what your credential is or what you've been trying to do, against war and against every war. I thought this is the war with Russia is. I hear voices. I don't know where they're coming from. But anyway, I'm leery when I talk to an ex-FBI agent. I hear noises here. But anyway, I thought this is a good war. This is a war against the evil, against Putin, that he's killing this Western white-looking people in Ukraine. So what is wrong with you? What, you just against any war or what? This is a good one.
Yeah, that's how most of the liberal Democrat-based Americans are seeing this latest war with a nuclear superpower. It's pretty incredible. I think we're in Orwell, a situation right now where war is peace for most of the liberal Democrats, and it's just a complete flip-flop from what you saw in Vietnam, for instance, and up to this time, even with Iraq, you had the Democrats mostly eventually opposed to the Iraq and Afghanistan and the wars in the Middle East. And in those cases, frankly, for Americans, it wasn't quite as dangerous because the United States was mostly bombing, using drone and aerial bombing to kill these really poor countries. You know, the people in those countries, millions of people were killed, but it didn't pose so much of a danger. But now that the United States has pivoted to war on its peer competitors, Russia and China. And of course, Russia and China are quite aligned. Also, Iran is in there too, but they're all very aligned. And Russia and China have nuclear weapons. So right now, it is critical that this be stopped, because it only takes a spark, just a spark, even accidentally, and we are all toast. The whole entire world ends. And Americans are really oblivious to this danger. They don't understand this. In fact, they just ran a public service announcement in New York City, a public service announcement that said, when nuclear missiles are heading to the United States, all you need to do is go in your apartment, shut your windows, and take a shower. This kind of war propaganda is unbelievable. And again, most of your naive, really, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, feeble-minded liberals, they have been duped into believing that the United States needs to be the so-called policeman of the world. So bringing democracy and human rights and even peace. So they believe that it's the same old thing as Vietnam. They tried to use, we have to bomb the village to save it. So that same propaganda, yes, we're killing all the Vietnamese, but we're trying to bring them peace. Okay, so the same really, again, very feeble-minded propaganda. But frankly, the people who like to believe that their leaders, this is a psychology experiment that goes back to the social psychologists, Ash, the line test, Milgram, the electric voltage test, and Zimbardo, the group superiority experiment. So most people, 70% of people, will believe if you press their emotional buttons. Okay, so this is emotionally based propaganda. And the main 5 emotional vulnerabilities of at least 70-80% of all people are fear, hate, greed, false pride, and blind loyalty. So groupthink, blind loyalty, Milgram test was the obedience to authority. And then the other things are, the fact if you tell a group, like this exceptionalism, American exceptionalism, which is behind all empires. It's not just the latest, our latest version is the United States, but this can go back to the Romans, the British. All throughout history, you will have powerful places and ethnic groups that will start to tell themselves that they are superior. Whether it's Christianity, we have to convert the Native Americans to Christianity. Therefore, it's okay if we kill them because then they'll go to God. I mean, it's really terrible propaganda, but people come to believe this. And so when a group believes they're superior, they are capable, and by the way, the Nazis, the Aryan supremacy, when you believe the chosen people of Israel. So when any group believes that they are superior, and we learned this in the Zimbardo experiment, which basically were classmates. They told one group of a class that they were superior. And eventually, within an hour or two, they had to shut the experiment down because they were abusing their own friends. So it's incredibly powerful.
Those things were like 50, 60 years ago, before Twitter and social media, and everybody now have access to what is going on. But you're talking about you have a two-party system that really does not much difference. It's just a cosmetic matter of degree. The difference is manufactured, and they manufacture difference and cultural issue, whatever. But they always end up agree on one thing: war. And so you've been championing, the anti-war movement. Is there an anti-war movement in this country? And if there is, they're not doing a good job because we always come to this conversation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wrote an article a few years ago, co-wrote an article called Recipe Concocted for Perpetual War. You can still Google it, Coleen Rowley, it's on Consortium News. And what the powers that shouldn't be in our country, our leaders decided after Vietnam, was they had to make war easy, no cost to Americans. So eventually what you had, of course, no draft. Immediately after Vietnam, they ended the draft. So there's no shared sacrifice. People don't even know there's a war going on. Then on top of ending the draft, we don't pay for wars. All we do is print money and it gets tacked on to the national debt. If you go back to 9/11, there was only $5 trillion, only $5 trillion of national debt. Bush nearly doubled it when he started the Iraq War. Obama doubled it again. It's been on and on. We're now up, after that short period of time of 20 years, up to 31.4 trillion, and they're going to raise it further. We're heading towards $32 trillion very quickly here, because the reason is there's no cost to Americans. Now, and then finally, I'll say the third thing is no casualties. So when Bush in Afghanistan and Iraq, there were 7,000 some deaths of American soldiers. This started to create a little bit of consciousness on the part of Americans that these wars were not good. So what did they do? They changed it to mere aerial bombing and use of proxy forces. So aerial bombing, they bombed, of course, Libya to smithereens, and no one cared. No one cared because there are no Americans. In fact, it was argued that by Hillary Clinton's legal advisor told her, we don't have it, it's not war. It's not war because we're not being killed. We're merely killing the foreign people. And so he says, this is called hostility, whatever. We won't call it war. And so you went to mere bombing, and then finally the use of proxy forces. This was done in Syria by using Al-Qaeda-linked forces as U.S. proxy forces, the white helmets, all of the al-Nusra. This was all we were arming. We're trying to topple the government of Syria. So when you're trying to do that, you use different dissident and proxy forces. Now, the same thing in Ukraine. We're using neo-Nazi forces to a great extent. The Ukrainians are being killed. They're the victims here. All of the proxy forces that the United States uses, because they don't want to make Americans understand it's a war by using American lives. They don't have any, quote unquote, boots on the ground. No more boots on the ground. We merely arm foreign people. But unfortunately, those are the victims. The Ukrainians are the victims. This is a war between the US and Russia. And the poor Ukrainians have been duped into, and bribed, by the way, bribed as well. We bribe a lot of these proxy forces as well, their leaders. It's this is the same old playbook. The United States is an empire that has lost a lot of its economic power. So they call it soft power. Soft power, people say, well, diplomacy instead of war, but diplomacy, a lot of it is based on power and economic power and bribery, blackmail even of foreign leaders, assassinations of foreign leaders. So this is called soft power. And we've lost, and actually there's one good part of soft power. One good part was moral authority. So leadership by example. So in the past, there was some, remaining leadership by example and moral authority. But once the United States after 9/11 started down this path and using torture and all kinds of bombing and terrible things, then in the world with the rest of the world, they started to say, well, the United States has lost its economic power. We lost from 40% down to 15-16% of control of the world's resources.
It's an amazing when you see the Democrats and so-called liberal that have been trained and educated by public radio, public television, and news hour, and all this liberal, so-called liberal media, they are that go on the gun ho and supporting this clown Zelensky. He's running all over the place. He's getting hugs and kisses and thanks from all the European nation. And in the same talking, here is Israel has been bombing Gaza to oblivion, and the media doesn't even cover that. What is the role of the media of shaping the debate and kind of doomed the American people that they have more resources and more, they're not going to be put in jail like in Egypt for protesting, or they have access to information. But the most educated, the liberal, they are the one the most duped by this. Is this happening in the 21st century in the time of TikTok and social media and Elon Musk and Twitter and all of this?
Yeah, the propaganda is a huge, on top of these things where they made war very palatable to Americans. On top of that, we are barraged nonstop with war hawk propaganda. Some of the worst comes from public television. I had to turn off public television. That Judy, the co-host, every night she's urging more war and interviewing all of the top war hawks. So yeah, it's really bad now. So in all fairness to people who have become duped, they are absolutely barraged. And this is what I said about pressing the emotional. So facts don't matter. Seymour Hersh just wrote an article about how the United States, very detailed explanation, description of how the United States bombed, complete act of war. It's an act of state terrorism, in fact. A pipeline like that, and actually ecological disaster as well. And yet most of the liberals will not even see it because it's been censored, completely censored by all of the mainstream media. And they do a combination of things. They plant false stories, false stories. We had this happen with Iraq, already happened with Iraq on the WMD. You think you'd learn a lesson that, the media is, they have a cozy relationship with the CIA. This happened at the end of Vietnam, where the CIA had hundreds of reporters basically almost on their payroll. And so that should have been a lesson learned, that you can't trust mainstream media in a time of war and in a time of desperation where they're trying to foment war propaganda. But yet people fall for it. And now they pretty much own all of the media. One of my colleagues, Ray McGovern, made up he said it's not just the military industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about in the 50s. No, this has now become the military industrial congressional intelligence media academia think tank complex. So it's Mickey Matt. So not only is it this little bit of the war profiteering weapon makers, it's now expanded to include our mainstream media as well as our academia, etc. So we really have a problem here. And so this is why people fall into this notion. And when they press emotional buttons, when they use emotion, it's very hard to say facts. Facts don't matter.
No,
it's what they call a post-truth world. Carl Rove He
Well,
says we make our own reality. How do you make your own reality? We're facts where we get to make up, we plant false stories. The latest thing with Twittergate is that the FBI is actually working with Twitter, censoring all kinds of scientists and incredible people. They can't even be heard. So we're in this high-tech thing where people get their news from their social media and whatever, and yet it's being controlled by the government. They've gained control of this. Now, one bright spot, Elon Musk, when he finally bought out Twitter, he has allowed, that's the one social media that, it's probably temporarily, they'll go after Elon Musk. I mean, if he continues to allow free speech on Twitter, and especially anti-war views cannot be heard anywhere on whether it's mainstream media, not even on Fox. There's no two-party thing. They're both in line with this. So they can't be heard at all.
We're not going to come here and support or believe what Elon Musk trying to do. This guy is like a frat boy that's playing with his hooks out of boredom. But you're talking about all these organizations that are now collaboration to doom the American people. Are they playing? Are all these organizations, the military-industrial complex, the media, the academia, the scientific community? I mean, they don't have to think tank. They don't have to really sit down in a boardroom and plotting this. It's just this is the era we live in, the surveillance algorithm that is really controlling, information and spreading the winning narrative.
Of all the powerful institutions, enjoy some common interests. That's the thing here. This is how you climb the ladder, and so it's really. You when you gain control of like, for instance, think tanks, there's no opposition, very little opposition in think tanks. There will be some very lower level people that will try to make a crack in some of this. And so you see some, once in a while, a video or something that was obtained through, surreptitiously or whatever. You'll see a little bit of that. You don't see, for instance, like the Pentagon Papers, where something is really crashing into mainstream, and they are really keeping that because there's only 5 or 6 owners of all the media. So it's done. You're absolutely right. No one meets. This is not a conspiracy where people are meeting in boards. They aren't the elite people, though. However, they are all in a certain kind of social cocktail club. So, for instance, your editors of your major newspapers are all friends with the CIA directors and whatever. They have their social cocktail hours together. So there's an informal confluence of interests and friendship, buddyship. And now what you see a little bit are people at the bottom. And by the way, this is funneling the whole war industry. Serves to siphon, tax money and everything else. It siphons it up to the wealthiest people. So our disparity between our lowest levels, our middle class now, our middle class is almost doesn't exist anymore. So you have these billionaires, Elon Musk being one, but Gates, a whole bunch of them, Gates and Bezos and all these multi-billionaires at the top. And the people at the bottom, frankly, a lot of them don't quite know what's going on, but they're homeless, the increasing homelessness. And also there's an increasing despair. I try to point out that war boomerangs back. So these people that think, oh, well, we're just bombing foreign people, there's no cost to us. All of the senseless mass shootings that are occurring every single day, if you turn on the news, there are senseless mass shootings. And it irritates me because the reporters will say they are looking for the motive. There is no motive. The motive is they're mad. the mass shooters get mad for whatever reason. And because it's now modeled that the way you solve your problems is to kill people. So they see this from the highest levels, that when you have a problem, it's okay to go out and kill. So suicide and homicide, people who commit suicide are hopeless. They're despairing. The people at the bottom now have become teenagers, lots and lots of teenagers. The suicide rate has just gone up like this. So the problem is we have a widespread hopelessness and despair on the part of people that are at the bottom of this thing that we climb up to the top and become multi-billionaires. And they are increasingly not just suicidal, but homicidal. So when they're at this thing, okay, well, I'll just take people with me. And we don't even understand, nobody understands that increasing domestic violence, okay, also people who are joining different extremist groups, they will topple the government, which is crazy. It's not possible to do these things. But you have people that are increasingly, what's the word? They're increasingly radicalized, and and it's based on hopelessness. So all of this is happening. You know what? This happened at the end of other empires. It's also I call it a rotting the country from the inside.
Rowley, a former retired FBI, she doesn't like America, and she's fighting.
No, that's not true. That's not true. It's not true. It's basically you have to have dissent. Otherwise, you will not be able to fix it. You have to understand what the root problems are. We can talk all day about ending crime. It ain't going to help unless the root problem is addressed.
A retired FBI agent, she's the one who wrote the whistleblower memo about 9/11. She is, launching a crusade, and Ben, since he left the FBI, to tell what you're not going to hear on mainstream media, and you're not going to hear it from an elected official. Thank you so much for all you're doing, Coleen, and we wish you all the luck. Always come here and tell us what is going on, because we have no idea. So,
yeah, well, thank you. It's a harsh reality, but I think we have to start facing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.